This is the Winterial one-person bivy tent, and I think this might be the best entry-level, beginner, budget-friendly, lightweight backpacking tent on the market. I've used this for a few years now and it's held up really well, and so today I'm gonna set it up, show it to you, tell you what I think about it, share the pros and really one big potential con. So let's dive in. So as you can see, this tent is not a freestanding tent. They call it a bivy tent. So I think it's because it's smaller than a typical one-person tent, but it's bigger than a bivy. And so it's kind of a hybrid in between there, and it actually rides that line pretty well. But this does require stakes. So let's get it staked out. So it requires 4 stakes at a minimum to have it be able to stand. And you definitely don't want to forget the stakes. Made that mistake on one trip where I loaned this to a buddy and we just threw it in the car and did not confirm that we had the stakes in the bag. And so it was quite the hassle we had where we had to, use rocks and sticks and whatnot to try to fashion our own stakes. But we made it work, but it was a hassle for sure. All right, so yeah, you want to make sure you get those tightened as much as possible, especially on the head and the toe, because this does tend to sag a little bit in the middle, and you can fix that a little bit when you get the rain fly on by holding that up a little bit, but you want to keep that as taut as possible across there. You can run it without the rain fly if you want to. There's one door, which opens right here. And you can tie this up in the middle. And I'll go ahead and lay down inside so you can see the dimensions and how it fits. I'm 6'2", and this tent has been big enough for me. It's not the roomiest thing in the world, but it certainly does the job. And you kind of have to like roll in here, tuck your head in, and then stick your feet down, and you can see, I'm not quite touching the mesh here at the top, and my toes are touching the side of the net at the bottom. So definitely at the max height for someone my size. So I would say if you're 6 foot or smaller, you're not gonna have any problems whatsoever with touching the sides. Being 6'2", it's definitely reaching its max height, I think. But like I said, it's doable. I've slept in this many nights and it's been perfectly fine. It is a little bit constraining for, doing things like changing clothes and whatnot. Generally what I have to do is like unzip it like this and then sit up, sticking out of the tent, and then change my clothes this way when I'm getting in or out of the tent. So definitely doesn't provide a lot of like privacy in that sense, if that's a concern. It's certainly restricting. It's certainly too restricting to do very much of anything once you're in here. You definitely, you can't sit up more than just a little bit to, fix your sleeping bag or something like that. You can kind of raise your legs up, but you're certainly not going to be sitting up and fully changing your clothes in here. Changing your pants is next to impossible in here. I've tried. And, for doing that, I generally end up having to stand up out of the tent here. If I have my socks on, I'll stay in here and then, change my pants right there and then get back inside or whatever. All right, so let's show you the rain fly. I'll throw that on here. The rain fly has 3 buckles and one loop for where the door is. Pretty easy to get the rain fly on. And you can stretch out this a little bit to get a tiny little vestibule, but it's not really a vestibule. You really don't want to be relying on that to put your backpack in. So I'll show you. Really, maybe you could stick your boots in here probably. But yeah, you've got about, 12 inches right there of space. So very minimal gear could be put in the vestibule there. But if you're worried about the tent sagging here in the middle, there's a couple things you can do to kind of shore that up. You can attach the rainfly to the tent pole here, and then there is little guide loops here. And so you can guide that out. I'll show you on this end. I've done that where, I attach the tent pole to the rainfly here, and then take this guide line and tie this to a tree or to a stake. And it really can pull that a lot more taut in the middle, because it pulls that whole, it pulls the whole netting up as well. So that can really kind of help to decrease the claustrophobic effect inside there. All right, so a few specs on this tent. This is a one-person tent, a true one-person tent. It is 3 pounds and 3 ounces, I believe. And currently it's on sale on Amazon for $90. So there's a link in the description below. You can go see what the price is right now. But at $90, I mean, you're not gonna get a better deal on a one-person backpacking tent that's this light. This thing is held up really well, and so it's not cheap. It's not like cheaply made or anything like that. I have been impressed. I've had this for about 4 or 5 years now, taken it on many trips, and it has held up great and done the job just fine. The rainfly is completely waterproof and comes down all the way to the sides and provides great rain protection. So I have been impressed by that. There's been no concerns as far as like leaking on the seams or anything like that. I've not had to go back and re-waterproof it. It's been completely solid as far as that's concerned. So that brings me to the one major potential con. Aside from being a little bit tight inside, I mean, that's what you're gonna get with a bivy tent, right? But to me, this is better than a bivy sack. It does get the material up off of you, so you can be free to move around in there and have some breathing space. You could read a book or whatever, things like that. So, but aside from it being a little bit tight on the inside, the biggest potential con, and I say potential con because I've not had this problem, but I could see it being a problem. And I know Luke on the Outdoor Gear Review talked about this on his channel when he reviewed this tent, but the concern is condensation. There is no venting on this tent. The only venting is the door or up underneath the rainfly on the side. And that's very minimal. That's very minimal airflow there. And there's nothing at the top you can do to open the venting except for opening the door. And obviously you're not going to be opening the door during a rainstorm. So if you are stuck in there for a rainstorm and it is kind of like hot or humid, or you're going to have to be in there for an extended period of time, then I could see condensation potentially becoming a problem on the inside. I've not had that problem. Now, I live in a very arid climate. I live in the high desert of Oregon, and so the majority of my trips have been in the summertime in drier weather conditions. And I think if you're going in those kind of conditions, in like desert conditions or warmer weather, things like that, I don't think you're gonna have a problem with condensation. Like I said, I have not experienced that whatsoever inside this tent. If you think you're gonna be taking this into much more of a rainy, humid environment, then you might wanna consider getting a different tent. But if you think generally you're gonna be going in summer conditions and you just wanna get a lightweight tent that kind of gets you into backpacking and it kind of gets you out there with some protection, then I think this tent is great. It's a great beginner-friendly tent, super affordable and reliable. So like I said, at this price, I don't think you're gonna find a better lightweight backpacking tent like this. Now, this is definitely a 3-season tent. I would not try to take this out in the wintertime, and that is due to the ventability of this tent. If you had snow around the edges or something like that, you'd be completely sealed up inside this thing, and condensation would certainly be a problem. So it claims that it's a 3-season tent, and I would say it's definitely a summer season tent with some wiggle room into the shoulder seasons. It comes in 2 colors, this kind of light green color and a bright orange color. I kind of like this one. I saw Luke on the Outdoor Gear Review complaining about the color of this, and I don't know, his looked a little bit different. His looked like brighter teal colored, so maybe they changed the color, changed the material lately. Like I said, I bought this about 4 or 5 years ago, so could be different. Check the link below and see what the price is too, because the 2 different colors are 2 different prices, and I think that's actually why I ended up buying this color, was because it was cheaper than the orange one at the time that I purchased it. And just to speak to the style of this tent, I think that there's a couple pros and cons to the way that this tent is designed with this side door. I actually bought this tent thinking I really preferred this entryway versus the other kind of pump tent styles where you have to crawl in from one end where the door is on that side, and you gotta have to, you know, crawl in and shimmy around, or, you know, crawl in feet first or whatever. This one, I liked this a lot more because it kind of opens it up. You can kind of get to your stuff a lot easier, and then, you know, getting in and out is easier. You can have the option to sit up and be able to do stuff while still, you know, in your tent or in your sleeping bag. And then that way, you know, you don't have to get all the way out or all the way back in to be able to do something when you're kind of crawling out the like igloo entrance or whatever it's called, or I think it's called a doggy door entrance, maybe. Anyway, this is pretty nice as far as that goes. I have enjoyed the way that you get in and out of it. There's enough room to turn sideways in here and still be comfortable. You could definitely sit in here and, you know, read a book, look at your phone, or whatever you need to do. Like I said, especially if you tie this up to the rain fly, that helps to really get the net up off of you there. And I guess the drawback to this tent door style is that if it is raining, then when you open this up, rain is going to fall directly into your tent. So you're gonna have to kind of get out quick or get in quick if it is actually like actively raining. Otherwise, everything else is gonna just get soaked inside the tent here. So overall, I definitely would recommend this tent for beginners, for those on a budget, for a secondary tent, if you're gonna be needing it for a different person. It's a great one that I like to be able to loan out to my buddies. I'm not that worried about it from the like amount of money invested in it perspective. But it's also held up really well and haven't had any problems with the material whatsoever. If you're looking to like try out backpacking and you don't want to invest a ton at the beginning, like I said, this is a fantastic way to, you know, dip your foot in, and could last you, you know, it gets you in the game, gets you out there, and that's what's important. So I hope that helps. If you have any other questions about this tent, drop them in the comments. I'm happy to respond, and I hope that helps. And don't forget, you got this, Dad.